Rachem al Zion, ki hi beit chayenu. 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 So I'd like to bring us back to 1 year ago, October 7th, 2023, at 6:30 a.m. A peaceful Shabbat morning on the holiday of Simchat Torah, a day of tranquility and celebration. Imagine you were in a music festival with hundreds of other revelers who had come to celebrate love and peace, dancing ecstatically through the night, watching the sun rising. Or in your kitchen on the kibbutz, making breakfast while your kids are playing. Or sitting down to a cup of coffee with your partner. Or asleep and dreaming in your cozy bed. When suddenly a nightmare unfolds and all hell breaks loose. And you hear the sound of thousands of terrorists invading, pouring across the border on foot, in tractors, motorcycles, paragliders, pickup trucks, gleefully marauding and killing so many innocents, men, women, elders, children, and babies. Chaos reigned for hours, and you think, can this really be happening? Suddenly, in an instant, everything changed. Unimaginable mayhem ensued. Destruction, devastation, burnings, mutilations, rapes, slaughters, and abductions. For us, the Jewish people, the world had turned upside down. Let's take a moment in silence to feel into that pain. The greatest army in the world failed to protect its most vulnerable citizens. Within days of this unbearable tragedy, in the eyes of much of the world, the victims became the oppressors. Israel, the light unto the nations, became the pariah unto the nations. Zionism had become a dirty word, and Zionists seen as colonists. Israel, the safe haven for Jews around the globe, escaping persecution, expulsion, and death, had become unsafe, terrifying, traumatized, polarized, surrounded on all sides by enemies bent on its destruction. Threatened by Hamas, an organization of merciless killers who demonically embed themselves among their people, hiding under hospitals, schools, mosques, and daycare centers, using their own citizens as human shields. In this country, the golden Medina of our grandparents' generation, our sense of safety as Jews has eroded, and we have watched as Jew hatred became normalized, emboldened, and glorified. And in our tiny Jewish world, friends and families are torn apart by intolerance, arrogance, each convinced they are in the right and villainizing the other. Moreover, we seem unable to reach into our hearts and listen with compassion and empathy to the other. And after a year of horrific, tragic, seemingly unending war, 101 hostages are still languishing in the hellholes of Gaza, while destruction and trauma tears apart innocence on all sides of the conflict. We are in a state of relentless, ongoing shock, grief, fear, terror, loss, rage, sadness, huge sadness, and impotence. Where can we go from here? How can we find hope in this situation? Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, Zichrono Livracha, said, "The key concept of Judaism and the national anthem of our state is Hatikva, the concept of hope." Judaism is a refusal to give up on our deepest ideals. Our task is to bring forward the Messianic age by the example of our lives. Remember John Polin, who spoke with tears in his eyes at the recent funeral of his son, Hirsch Goldberg Polin, Zichrono Livracha, the murdered American-Israeli hostage, quoting the words of the Hatikva, Od lo avda tikvatenu, and still we have not lost our hope. The philosopher Howard Zinn offered this perspective. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. As Rabbi Sacks said, our task is to bring forward the Messianic age by the example of our lives. This is inspirational hope, and I want to offer some beautiful instances of those who have behaved magnificently for us to reflect upon, giving us hope. Ben Shimoni, 31, from Ashkelon, a music lover, shy, loyal, and generous. He managed to escape from the Nova Festival with 4 strangers that he picked up and drove to Beersheba, dropped them off, and returned to Nova, this time rescuing 8 more people, dropped them off, and returned again. The 3rd time, he gathered 3 people, and in the midst of the rescue, he and one of the passengers were murdered, and the other 2 were taken hostage. Rachel Edry, 65 years old, emerged from her bomb shelter on October 7th to find 5 terrorists in her living room. With calmness and grace, she held them off for 20 hours. One of the men aimed a rifle at Rachel and her husband David, held a grenade over her head and began screaming, Allah Akbar. She maintained her composure and offered them food. Speaking in Arabic, she said, "You look hungry. Let me get you something to eat." She made them tea, baked them Moroccan cookies, and bandaged one of their hands. Later, she said it was like we were in a dream. We didn't know what would happen to us. Finally, after 20 hours, during which she and David quietly prayed together and remained courageous and resilient, a counterterrorism unit stormed into their home from the roof and killed the terrorists. She and her husband emerged unscathed physically, and she later said, "I do not know how I am alive. I do not know how I am alive." Savta Rachel, grandmother Rachel, has become a hero in Israel. The picture is of an outdoor mural in her honor, and she has even shared her cookie recipe on TikTok. This beautiful woman, some of you have heard of Vivian Silver, 74-year-old Canadian who immigrated to Israel in 1974 and was a lifelong Rodefet Shalom, a pursuer of peace. She moved to Kibbutz Be'eri in 1990, where she became the CEO of the Negev Institute for Peace and Development Strategies, building relationships with the surrounding Bedouin community and with Palestinians in Gaza. She co-founded Nashim Osot Shalom, Women Wage Peace, in 2014, an interfaith grassroots organization of Arab and Jewish Israeli women, which lobbies for a diplomatic resolution to the conflict and brings women from Israeli and Palestinian societies together. She also volunteered for an organization called Road to Recovery, driving sick Palestinians from Gaza to Israel for life-saving medical treatments. A couple of years ago, she said, "Enough! We cannot accept acts of war that bring only death, destruction, and pain, and inflict mental and physical harm as a daily occurrence. We call upon the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the Cabinet to find the necessary courage to promote political alternatives, to find the necessary courage that will bring us peace and security. We call upon our sisters in Gaza, join us. Call upon your leaders and say, enough. Terror benefits no one. You too deserve to live in peace and security." She was found murdered in her safe room in her home on Kibbutz Be'eri. The Tatzpaniyot. These young women soldiers were the spotters on the border with Gaza. They sat for 9-hour shifts, watching and reporting unusual activity, and knew, in the words of Talia, one who survived, every stone, every vehicle, every shepherd, every laborer, every bird watcher. Unheeded for months as they reported suspicious activity, drone activity, attempts to knock out cameras, rehearsals for attacking Israeli tanks. They warned of an impending invasion. Left unarmed and unprotected, they kept broadcasting during the invasion in steady and clear voices and did not leave their posts. The very first casualties of the war, 15 young women were slaughtered in their barracks. Noah, Maya, Hadar, Shira, Shirel, Noam, Shai, Aviv, Shir, Shachaf, Roni, Adi, Yael, Shirat, Yam. And 7 were taken hostage: Karina, Naama, Liri, Daniela, Agam, who remain hostage; Ori, who was rescued; and Noah, who was killed in captivity. Desh, Hamid, Ishmael, and Rafi al-Quinari, 4 Bedouin brothers from the city of Rahat, drove 40 miles to Kibbutz Be'eri, intending to rescue their cousin, Hisham, who was a worker in the kibbutz dining room. On their way, they encountered the attack at the Nova Festival and found terrorized young people running for their lives. They said, "Our consciences did not allow us to abandon them." They made 3 trips into and out of the horrific death scene and evacuated between 30 and 40 people to safety. After rescuing each carload of frantic partygoers, they hugged them, gave them water, washed their faces, and helped them contact their families. Ishmael al-Qarnari later said, "I remember the dead bodies I saw on the road, the dead bodies in the fields." That is something you cannot forget. They then proceeded to Kibbutz Be'eri, which they entered under heavy gunfire, and located and rescued their cousin Hisham and a local resident, Aya Meidan, who had been hiding together in the bushes for 6 hours. Ben Shimoni, Rachel Edry, Vivian Silver, the Al-Qanari brothers, and the brave Tatzpaniyot are examples of human beings who acted magnificently in the face of extraordinary challenges. In the words of Howard Zinn, what we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. May we honor, remember, and be inspired by their compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. And may the memories of Vivian, Ben, the Tatzpaniyot, and all of the innocents lost in this war be for a blessing. May we be blessed to rise from a year of sorrow to many years of joy, from a year of war to many years of peace, tranquility, and celebration. And by the example of our lives, may we bring forth the Mashiach, the Messianic age. Can you hear it, son?